Hey everybody, what is up? We are in the middle of summer and it is time for yet another thrilling, exciting episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. I am the maestro, Kevin Crane.
I'm the conquistador, Dave Height, and it is the second most boring sports week of the year.
Yeah, I was kind of going for sarcasm. It didn't really come through. Yes, it is the doldrums of the sports world this week. We got the All-Star game, which neither of us watched.
No, because we've told you time and again, we hate all-star games. They are pointless and useless and boring.
Of course, we got training camps opening next week. Rookies just reported, but still, that's not really giving us much to talk about there.
No.
So you might get a little bit of a brief Sports Frenzy 2.0 this week. Now, the weekend edition will be...
That will be chock full.
Full bore, full steam ahead with our review of the Sonic Slam Tour. We got Journey. We've got the House of Gucci. We've got TV and streaming reviews. So,
yeah, there's a lot to check out on the weekend edition, kids. Drop Saturday morning.
But just because it's a little bit of a light sports week does not by any stretch mean that we don't have some opinions, some stories to throw out there to talk about.
We always have something to talk about. You know this.
So I guess we'll get out of the way right now. Again, we didn't watch it, the All-Star game.
I caught highlights. There weren't that many. Was it Kershaw picked off Ohtani, who was just sitting there with his thumb up his ass at first base? Jimenez and Anderson teamed up on a wicked double play.
See, all I saw was Stanton's home run. That was about it. I saw the Stanton-Buxton back-to-back, and that was it. That's all I saw in terms of highlights.
All right, yes, Stanton tied it up, but Buxton is the one who hit the game-winning home run. Shouldn't he have been MVP?
The thing that's tricky is with the way they have to play the game, and at most, I mean, it's rare now that you see anybody get 3 at-bats. At most, usually you get 2 at-bats. So, yeah, 2-run homer, I guess, is good enough for MVP.
To tie the game. It didn't even win it.
I heard a lot of people were so impressed with the closer from the Guardians, blowing down 1, 2, 3 strikeouts at the end to get the save.
That would have been MVP.
Now, I've heard his name. I say it's Clace, but some people have said it's Clase.
Whatever.
But yeah, everybody was talking about how he was just blowing people away, mowing them down at the end. So, you people, you vote on what you want. You decide what you want.
So basically, what we're
in the end, it's a worthless
all
game.
Yankees fans were watching the game and voting.
In the end, it's a worthless game because it means nothing. Again,
right.
You took away home field advantage.
That's what made it exciting.
We were the few, the proud, Dave and I were thinking that was actually a smart idea that Major League Baseball had put in there, instituted. Yeah. And then they took it away because, no, you shouldn't have the All-Star game decide home field in the World Series.
Blah. So now you mic up the players and interrupt them while they're playing the game. I hate that crap. Absolutely do not like it.
And for all the goodwill, of course, the game was in Los Angeles, for all the goodwill at Chavez Ravine, for Clayton Kershaw starting, turns out that the other Dodgers pitcher, Tony Gonsolin, was the one that got rocked for the 3 runs and got the loss. So, possible World Series preview? Gonsolin versus Stanton? Let's hope not. Let's hope not. Because God forbid, we've got 2 weeks now until the trade deadline hits.
Yep.
And all I'm hearing is Dodgers, Yankees, Mets. Dodgers, Yankees, Mets are going to.
Who's going to land Juan Soto?
Not just Juan Soto, but Castillo from the Reds, the number 1 pitcher out there. You got Wilson Contreras. You've got about 6 or 7 really decent players out there who could help in a pennant run. And, of course, the fact that baseball's luxury tax
is a joke.
Isn't going to stop the Yankees, the Mets, or the Dodgers from going all in this year. So we're basically going to raise and rape the Reds and the Cubs and the A's, and we're just going to destroy those teams completely. So the almighty West Coast and the almighty Northeast can get what they want.
That's why baseball sucks right now.
It does. It does. I don't care what anybody says about the expanded playoffs.
It's a joke.
I've heard a lot of commentators saying before the Orioles got hot, before the Mariners got hot, that this was a joke of a season. Yeah. Now everybody's backtracking, going, well, now the Orioles are at 500. Oh, well, Seattle's in the playoffs now.
No, it's still pathetic the way that the cap is structured. You have to come down hard on the teams who go over the cap number. It has to be a hard and fast cap that you have to be under.
And you'll never see that.
Going over it. And my God, you have to have a hard floor.
And I heard one of the executives, Major League Baseball executives today talking, they're expanding to 32.
Only if they can get the A's and the Rays new stadiums. They have to get their situations before they'll even think of going to 32. I'm sorry, why are you going to water down the talent pool even more than it already is? That makes absolutely no sense. You've got teams that should not be in existence anymore the way they're being run. And I'm sorry, there are some historic franchises that are included in that. If you're looking at the Pirates, the Reds, the A's,
the
Royals, right there, always, every once in a while the Royals will pop up, but they're the only ones.
Now, all those franchises. Now you have to go back a ways.
How long has it been since the Reds or the Pirates have been relevant in any way?
The 90s. It's been the 90s. Yeah. It's been over 20 years, easily over 20 years.
And I'm sorry, you can throw the Marlins in there too.
Well,
the Marlins are kind of pathetic.
Went all in twice.
Yeah, and you haven't seen anything.
Like a desperate gambler in Las Vegas and won both times.
Yeah, and what do they...
But that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And now you look at the Nationals, you look at the Cubs, teams
and what
that
the
just
hell is
have
Colorado
won.
and Arizona ever doing?
Well, Arizona won.
Yeah, what have they done since?
I'm with you. But here's the thing. This is what you and I always talk about. Baseball doesn't listen to us. They should. The Yankees fans, God forbid the Yankees have a down year. All is wrong. It's like Dallas in the NFL. All these idiots who go, football's better when the Dallas Cowboys are good. No, it's not. Football is fine with the Dallas Cowboys being mediocre to bad.
Yes, because let's face it, very few people actually like the Cowboys. Most people root against them.
The sport is strong because it has a hard cap, which means all the teams have the equal chance to compete and to win. The GMs, the owners, the coaches have to be on top of their game. It's not like Aaron Boone, who gets handed a fantasy baseball team every year. Exactly. And in some years he's great like this year. And some years he's mediocre. Aaron Boone would not be able to manage 27 of the other teams in Major League Baseball. He would be able to manage the Dodgers, the Mets as they're currently constructed, and the Yankees because it's funny money. It's fantasy baseball with those teams now.
Exactly.
Let's see what he could do with the Pirates. Let's see what he could do with the Royals. Answer, nothing. Nothing. You could put the best managers, Terry Francona. Look what he's doing with the Guardians, who have one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. And he's at least got them playing 500.
Yeah.
That's a good manager. Aaron Boone wouldn't last 3 weeks managing the Guardians.
Not at all.
And that's what the difference is between the NFL and Major League Baseball. That's why the Super Bowl ratings...
parity.
The Super Bowl ratings are unbelievable, astronomical, And the World Series ratings, year after year after year, slide and plummet and slide and plummet.
And you know another reason why the salary system works in the NFL, kids? There's not that much guaranteed money. Entire contracts are not guaranteed. Oh, except for Deshaun Watson, who the Browns royally effed everything up with that.
Yep, and we'll get to that. We're going to talk NFL a little bit later. But I felt we had to bring that in as a comparison.
Yeah.
We talked about the NBA. You want to talk about the Big Four. The NHL, we said, had to blow things up.
Yep, but they have a hard cap and a hard floor.
The NBA is the next one that's going to be in trouble. We've been saying this ever since we started this podcast. Once that ESPN deal, where ESPN vastly overpaid,
yep,
unless they get their influx of dirty money somehow that they get to revel in from China, gets kicked up. When this media deal is done and everybody starts looking at the ratings and the numbers, and you're giving Damian Lillard $61 million a year
for no reason
as an aging top 30 player,
you got issues coming down the line in the NBA. There's a reckoning coming.
The NFL has always known what they were doing. Even though baseball was the king in the 70s and the 80s, football was coming like a locomotive with no brakes. And it passed everybody else, and it blew them away, and it ran them down.
Because they figured out how to control and keep competition equal.
And here's another
playing field everyone could deal with.
And here's another thing the NFL doesn't do. At the last minute, they come out and they say, well, if there's a tie in the 9th inning this year in the All-Star game, we're going to have a home run derby.
That was the biggest frickin' joke I heard coming out this week. Come on, seriously?
Now, one of our major sports is making things up on the fly as they go?
This isn't NASCAR. It's one of the oldest sports ever played in this country.
And 2 days before the All-Star game, they go, oh, we're going to decide the All-Star game with a home run derby now.
So damn dumb.
And speaking of the home run derby, how ironic is it that the winner was Juan Soto, poster child right now for what we're talking about with all the economic disparities among the teams, as he rejects a 15-year, $440 million offer from the Nationals.
Yeah, you know who his agent is.
Yeah, he's got to shave down his horns every day. His name is Scott fucking Boras.
Who's single-handedly helped destroy baseball and put us in the economic problems.
And that's why I laughed when the news first broke. Again, late last week, so we've had a lot of days to digest it.
Yeah.
But I know the Cubs will not deal with him. They wouldn't deal with him when it came to Chris Bryant. They can't stand Boras, and I can't blame them for it.
Will deal with this stupid ass.
I can blame them for a hell of a lot right now, but I wouldn't deal with Boras either. I see his number come on my phone, boom, straight to voicemail. Straight to voicemail.
He is going to make you outbid yourself because he's a greedy bastard.
And the message on my phone would say, hey, this is Kevin Crane, general manager of the Chicago Cubs. If you're anybody but Scott Boras, leave a message. If you're Scott Boras, go fuck off and die. That's what my voicemail message would be.
Exactly.
Now, the interesting thing about the Juan Soto situation is that you might not have to give up a ton of prospects to get Soto because the Nationals are going to be on the market. They're going to be sold here soon.
Yeah.
Part of that uncertainty is what Juan Soto's looking at in terms of not wanting to commit.
Yeah. Who's going to have the team? What are they going to do with the team? Are they going to be like the Pirates and the Reds? Or are they going to be like the Yankees and Dodgers?
Well, here's the question. We've already talked about the fact that the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Yankees are already pretty much maxed out. The Yankees at least I think, are trying to be somewhat responsible. Dodgers and the Mets have already blown past the luxury tax threshold. The Yankees are trying to stay close. They know they're going to have to pay Aaron Judge a shit ton of money starting next year. But the Nationals supposedly won't necessarily require a ton of prospects if the team that's trading for Soto will take either Patrick Corbin or Steven Strasburg off their hands and pay the entire contract.
Yeah.
Not like the stupid Cubs last year who basically gave Rizzo to the Yankees and paid
everything.
The entire fucking contract. Genius move that was.
That was bad.
Yeah, because God forbid a team that needs relief is the New York fucking Yankees.
Yeah. Oh, and gee, who was Strasburg's agent who got him that stupid deal? That's right, the devil himself, Boras.
Going back to the All-Star game, there was no vendor strike, shockingly, as I predicted. I told you there was no way they were going to strike during the All-Star game. But the home run derby, again, Juan Soto won. Controversy. Again, baseball can't help but fuck itself over and over and over again. They let Albert Pujols advance because they did not count one of Kyle Schwarber's home runs.
Why?
Because ESPN and Major League Baseball are idiots. It was clear that they shorted Kyle Schwarber one home run, which should have sent him and Pujols into overtime.
Yeah.
But no, they short Schwarber so Pujols can move on.
Pujols because this is going to be his last hurrah. What, they couldn't manipulate Cabrera?
Well, and then in the finals, I've heard this for years and years, and they don't enforce it, which is bullshit. Selective enforcement. You are not supposed to throw a pitch until the previous ball has landed.
Right.
And Soto's pitcher was just throwing those balls up there. The minute Soto hit it, next ball's coming. And nobody stopped them. They showed the umpire trying to go, no, stop. And they just let him keep going and going and going.
So he got more opportunities.
Yes, because he was swinging away when the previous ball had not landed yet. So once again, baseball has no idea what it's doing.
Nope, none, no clue at all.
And you wonder why the cry for automated home plate umpires is so loud. Because at least you can't screw that up, right?
Yeah, right. They will find a way.
Well, your buddy, former White Sox great Chris Sale, has about as good a luck as I do. Second game back after a lengthy stay on the IL, fractures his pinky against the Yankees. Holds it up after it gets hit with his hand gets hit with a line drive. Holds it up.
And it's mangled.
It did not look good. So you wonder if Chris Sale will be back again this year or not.
Who knows? We got rid of him at the right time.
Yeah, that's a move that worked out extremely well.
Yeah, because he was becoming a head case and not a good teammate on the south side of Chicago.
Now, on the opposite side, a pitcher who has been, for the most part, durable. Yes, he did just have Tommy John surgery, but bounced back from it. Completely healthy, dominating right now, Justin Verlander.
He hasn't missed a beat coming off of that surgery.
Right before the break, got his 12th win to lead Major League Baseball. And
yeah, how pathetic is that? At the All-Star break, your wins leader is at 12.
We always talk about this. If we get a 20-win pitcher, it'll be a miracle. It'll be a miracle.
Oh my God!
It's going to have to be Verlander. Verlander, maybe Gonsolin,
maybe
with the Dodgers, guys who are in double digits right now.
Yeah,
but
the babying of pitchers is absolutely ridiculous.
But Verlander now, 3,121 strikeouts, passing Curt Schilling and Bob Gibson, now 14th all time. And I do want to make a point out of this. Yes, a tangent, a rant, if you will, from the maestro. Fuck the writers for the Hall of Fame. Fuck the writers who vote for the Hall of Fame, because you're holding Curt Schilling's politics against him. Curt Schilling should be in the goddamn Hall of Fame right now.
He should be. For everything he did.
He's one of the last great pitchers before we started, like you just said, babying the pitchers.
And he is not tainted by the steroids either.
No.
Like Clemens did to himself.
You can claim, right or not, people on both sides claiming that the bloody sock was fake. I don't care. He showed up and he pitched.
He did what he needed to do.
Curt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame right now.
Politics notwithstanding. I'm so sick of politics.
I don't give a goddamn if you hate Republicans, you put Curt Schilling in the Hall of Fame.
He is one of the top pitchers of all time.
Then one last note on baseball. We talked about Freddie Freeman, the regret, the remorse, the controversy around him going to the Dodgers.
Yep.
Did he hear about a final offer from the Braves?
Or did he not?
He fires his agent, Casey Close, because of this situation. And now Casey Close is suing Fox Sports' Doug Gottlieb because he was the one prominent sports reporter who put that out there immediately.
Put the story there that he was fired because he didn't present Freeman with the final Braves offer.
So Casey Close is suing Gottlieb for libel. That'll be interesting.
That is going to be very difficult to prove. If you've got sources as a reporter, that makes it really tough.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, maybe it would have been libel if Freeman wouldn't have fired your ass. But obviously there's something there.
Yeah, because you're looking at impulsive behavior. Casey Close is relying on impulsive behavior on two different fronts. He's saying, number one, Doug Gottlieb was impulsive in saying what he said. And then he's also saying his former client, Freddie Freeman, didn't do any homework on this, just took Doug Gottlieb's word for it and impulsively fired him. So you're basically saying neither Freeman nor Gottlieb did their research.
And I find that very hard to believe.
Exactly.
Find it very hard to believe.
Freddie Freeman does not strike me as an idiot.
No.
And Doug Gottlieb, sometimes, yeah, he's got a mouth like a backed up septic tank, but he's not as bad as a lot of the other ones out there.
He's not prone to just making something up.
No, he is far from the worst out there. Trust me. All right, one little NBA tidbit to wrap up segment one here on, as Dave said, the second worst sports week of the year.
And here we've almost run through an entire segment on baseball.
Well, DeAndre Ayton sounded like he did not want to play for the Phoenix Suns a couple weeks ago. Upset because he didn't get offered an extension, wanted out. So the Indiana Pacers step up, say, we'll take you. 4 years, $133 million, but he's a restricted free agent, so all they could do was sign him to an offer sheet.
Waiting to see.
And of course, the Suns
said, okay, we'll match it.
So the Suns are intact again. The one interesting side note on this, though, is this means the Suns are out in terms of trading for Kevin Durant.
Yep.
Now that Ayton has signed, the Suns match for the offer sheet from the Pacers, that means he cannot be traded until 2023 at the earliest. So Durant is probably out in terms of a possible trade to Phoenix, unless he plays another year in Brooklyn. Again, the
Whatever.
Brooklyn Nets situation.
They're a mess.
Such a disaster. And they thought they were going to be the shazit. They thought, oh, we've got Harden, we've got Kyrie, we've got Durant, and it has turned into a clusterfuck of epic proportions.
Everybody outside of that organization knew what a circus it was going to be and that those egos could not coexist.
Oh, and by the way, you remember Uncle Drew? Remember the movie? Remember that's Kyrie Irving's character that he came up with?
Vaguely.
Didn't even show up for the Uncle Drew basketball camp because it was in California.
Oh, and he couldn't travel?
Well, remember what happened last year? He couldn't play for how long in New York because...
Oh, my God. His vaccination status.
Yep.
What a dip fuck.
I'm pretty sure he's Uncle Drew, right? That's not Chris Paul.
I don't remember. I don't know. It's the NBA. I don't follow it that closely.
Well, and of course, LeBron James, rips into every Boston fan out there saying they're all racist.
God.
People are starting to finally come to us in terms of our viewpoints on LeBron James. People are finally realizing we've been right all along in that he is a jackass. He is not a good person. He is not a smart person.
No, he is a self-promoting, egotistical, I will say whatever will get me headlines. Yeah.
It's easy to be a quote-unquote successful businessman when you have $1 billion.
Yeah. When you get a lot of your endorsements from China.
All right, kids. Segment 2 will feature our look back at last week's NASCAR race in New Hampshire and a look ahead to this week's race in the Poconos. So Hang out with us. Stay tuned. Dave and I will be right back. Hey, kids. Ready for a blast of dairy goodness? Pick up Sports Frenzy 2.0 milk at your local grocery store. Remember, when you drink Sports Frenzy 2.0 milk, you're not only enjoying a healthy treat, you're helping to locate missing sports heroes of the past and present. Our cartons and jugs feature pictures of Peng Shuai, Ryan Leaf, and Sammy Sosa as we do our part to find the lost icons of the last 30 years. And don't forget our special weekend edition chocolate milk containers, available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, because they feature celebrities like Lindsay Lohan, Helen Hunt, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Pick up a gallon today.
Hey kids, welcome back to Sports Frenzy 2.0 during the second most boring sports week of the year after the All-Star break. This will drop July 21st, 2022, here as we record on the 20th. You can find us everywhere. You can find any podcast, Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Stitcher, Amazon, and Audible.
Yeah, that's right, kids. We are all over the place. We are taking over this podcast universe.
We hope.
Yes. That being said, like us, please. Go to our Facebook page.
Tell your friends. Tell your family.
Validate us, love us. Give us thumbs up. Laughing emojis.
Even if you're laughing at us.
Yes. Don't put a puke emoji out there because I might have to go see my therapist.
Okay, Snowflake.
Yeah, right.
All right. NASCAR. Some news to discuss this week on racing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got news. We got news. First up, let's recap Loudon.
Congrats to Christopher Bell.
The 14th different winner. Dale Jarrett's prophecy looking like it's going to come to pass. He's been the one guy out there each and every week screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs.
It could happen.
He's 2 away. 2 away from it happening.
Now, he kind of backed off Sunday post-race. Not sure if they would get to 16, but thinking 15 was definitely doable.
Martin Truex had the pole at New Hampshire, had a dominant car, won both stages.
Won stage 1 and 2, but did not have enough there at the end.
Yep. So once again, Christopher Bell is the 14th winner. Now, this is where I am going to say I don't like this system. I have never liked it, but now it's going to be proven because now we're getting to the point. Now it's getting dicey because the 2 guys left without wins who are in the playoffs right now are in the top 6 in points.
Yeah.
Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. And if one of them gets knocked out, that's
ridiculous.
A shame. That's a shame.
Because they are having a solid overall year. They just have not had the racing luck to take the checkered flag.
It's the Matt Kenseth penalty. That's what I've always said it is. It's the Matt Kenseth penalty where you do not get awarded anymore for being consistently good. You have to be great for at least 1 week. Otherwise, NASCAR will screw you, which could potentially happen to Blaney and Truex
and
here over the next month.
Pathetic, especially a former champ missing out in this way.
Yep. Of course, the big news this week in NASCAR, we've talked about it. We've mentioned it was coming. And to the day, yesterday the 19th, as we tape, we told you this, Sports Frenzy clued you in on this press conference. Chicago will have a 3-year deal for a street course starting the weekend of July 1st and 2nd, 2023, around Grant Park. Lakeshore Drive will be involved, a 2.2 mile, not finalized, but a 2.2 mile track.
Lakeshore Drive, Michigan Avenue, start-finish line, and the pits near Buckingham Fountain. Picturesque backdrop along the lake there.
Now, Dave and I were discussing this over the past weekend, and we knew this was coming, and we'd also heard the rumors, and again, we shared this with you weeks back, that unfortunately, Road America is the venue that gets screwed in this because Road America is now out. Which a lot of people cannot figure out after 2 years with the support Road America has given NASCAR, especially at the Xfinity level.
Yeah, Road America should still be there.
We said Indianapolis should go back to being a normal track.
Yes.
Go back to the Brickyard. I know it's not the best. It can be boring. But I also understand where NASCAR doesn't want to add on yet another road or street course. But get rid of the second Kansas race.
Please.
Go back to only one Atlanta race. You just gave them a second one. I understand it. Because you guys are enamored with now the fact that it's yet another, basically a super speedway.
We don't necessarily need that.
No.
You screwed Atlanta up anyway, and you haven't really made it that much better. I like the original configuration.
We don't like multiple tracks. We don't like...
There are some that are good.
Well, Daytona and Talladega are going to get 2 races. We get that.
Bristol's
going to get 2.
And it's not as good as it used to be because the way they jacked the track up, they screwed up a great race by trying to put in the progressive banking. They destroyed that races there. They tried to put it back, and they failed miserably.
So any number of those fixes would have been good, would have been fine. I just don't like the fact that they give Road America a 2-year trial. Even Joliet got more than that outside of Chicago.
Before, no, Road America was fine.
Loyal fans up
Kansas.
There again. I feel very bad for Road America.
Yeah.
I do. The fans out there
should drop one of the Kansas races and go back to the Indy Oval.
Yep. Completely, again, understand you don't want to overdo it with the road courses, but there were ways to fix this that didn't have to involve immediately dropping Road America after 2 years.
Yeah.
And
Unacceptable.
They had done nothing wrong. The fans showed up for those 2 races.
Yep. It's just idiocy run amok in NASCAR once again.
So we'll see next year, July 4th weekend. Once again, another change on the schedule for the Cup guys on July 4th weekend.
Yep.
We'll see how the street course works out in the Windy City.
Yep. Now, what the hell happened with Dylan and Keselowski losing their damn minds?
I think it's frustration on both sides. I think
it has to be. Neither one had an explanation for what they were doing.
Yep.
Both said, it's just build up.
They both need wins. Neither one of them is even going to be close to making it on points, even if things stayed at 14 in terms of winners.
Yeah, they're not close.
So, yeah, I think it's frustration knowing that they have got to win. And the minute they realize they're not going to, take it out on the first person that crosses your path.
Yeah. So, yeah, neither one had an explanation for what happened. And it was comical in a way.
Well, I think part of the problem with Austin Dillon is the pressure of doing his reality show.
You know, I heard speculation that he asked Keselowski to appear and he denied.
I watched like 5 minutes of it.
It was pathetic.
Couldn't stand it.
It was bad. So, and now Toyota's starting to feel some heat, trying to get Kyle Busch re-signed with Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yes. Now the word is out that they are, quote unquote, contingency planning.
Yeah, because Kyle is in talks with other teams.
They cannot find a sponsor.
No.
That is, of course, number one priority for any NASCAR driver is to hold on to their sponsor.
Yep.
We talked about Denny Hamlin last week, how he will not do anything to jeopardize his affiliation with FedEx. He'll stay with Gibbs. He'll go to 2311, whatever it takes to keep FedEx on that car.
Yeah.
So now with Kyle Busch
losing M&Ms,
ironically this weekend, we'll get to that in a few minutes. And now let's ask this. We have to ask this question. Is his abrasive attitude, the fact the fans don't like him, NASCAR is more forgiving. NASCAR loves a villain. NASCAR loves a Jimmy Spencer. NASCAR loves a Tony Stewart.
They love Dale Earnhardt.
Right. So I can't believe necessarily that's a problem as far as sponsors go.
Unless he is just, I don't know how he would be to fans at sponsorship events that he would need to do. That might be a rubbing point. I don't know. Or he's just a whiny little piss bag that everybody's sick of.
That was kind of the point I was getting to, yeah. Even in the commercials that he's in.
He comes Toyota across as a D-bag.
Right. He's not likable.
No.
He's just not a likable person.
He's not. He does not come off as likable at all.
And that's why we call him year in and year out Dirty Bush.
Yeah. I mean, say what you will about some other guys throughout the years, but at least they had some semblance of a likable personality. There was something you could get behind with them.
Oh, people respected Tony Stewart, even though we saw that in SRX a couple of weeks ago where he grabbed Ernie Francis at the break.
Yeah.
And he looked like he wanted to just rip him a new one.
But then, not that much longer later, they got their arms around each other laughing.
Because I think people, just like Dale Earnhardt and Tony Stewart, people respect their passion to win.
Yeah.
But they also, both Dale Sr. and Smoke, come off as guys that appreciate where they are. They appreciated the wins. They appreciated everybody around them that helped them get to that point where Kyle Busch comes off like a little smarmy. It's all on me when we win. It's all on you,
when I
the crew, when the owner, whoever.
Yeah.
Anybody in
He
the
doesn't
garage,
take any responsibility for what he does.
you hear the radio. And that's another thing that works against him, that we hear the radio feeds now, every now and again during the races. And he always sounds like a petulant douchebag.
Yeah. It's always, you guys haven't done anything for me. This car is crap,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. It's your fault, your fault, your fault. Who wants to work with that?
So again, very interesting to see how this silly season drama plays out.
Yep.
Now, we know there's an opening at Petty GMS because they have given Ty Dillon his walking papers.
There's also going to be an opening at RCR with Tyler Reddick leaving.
But no, he's got one more year unless they worked out a deal.
Unless they work something out, yeah.
And let him leave early, but you know how that works. You can't really do that.
Yeah,
They committed to Tyler Reddick for 2023. 2024, he's heading to 2311.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what you're going to get?
Unless 2311 is willing to put another car in their stable. Or unless
Childress
they tell
steps
Kurt
up with
Busch you're
another.
done after this year, which I wouldn't think they would do. He still looks like he's got a year or two left in the tank.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
But on Tim.
But, I mean, Kurt Busch has won a race. Kurt Busch has been competitive this year.
Yeah.
He is not.
Kyle's got to win on the dirt at Bristol. He
Compare him to
that.
Kevin Harvick. Compare him to Kevin Harvick. Who would you want right now, Kurt Busch or Kevin Harvick? All right? Just saying.
Yeah.
And I love Kevin Harvick. I love Happy. You know I love Happy. But
they're not doing anything.
And you wonder if he's starting to lose the fire, whereas Kurt Busch jumping teams
kind of sparked something there.
Right. Now, it hasn't worked for Brad Keselowski, but again, that team's starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Whereas at least 2311 had a year to get going with Bubba. And then Kurt Busch came in on the second team.
Yeah. And it doesn't hurt to have a former series champion on board.
Yep.
To help get you in the right direction.
Yep. Now, Kyle Larson, entrepreneur that he is, good for him too. I am so glad he has bounced all the way back from that bullshit controversy.
That was ridiculous.
From the COVID, the COVID stuff
e-racing.
And the e-racing and the comment he made. You know, we talk about the suspensions, the penalties all these guys get. We'll talk about Deshaun Watson again here in a few minutes. I'm just glad. I just think they came down way too hard on Kyle Larson.
That was a little ridiculous what they did
and
to
I
him.
was so happy for him last year when he won the title.
Vindication.
So now he, along with Brad Sweet, are starting a new sprint car series in 2023, 12-race schedule, the High Limit Series.
Interesting.
So Brad Sweet is a big name in NASCAR, more behind the scenes, but
yeah. Well, they're looking at the success of the SRX.
Funny you should mention the SRX because the second to last race of the 6-race SRX season was this past Saturday at I-55 Raceway outside of Pevely, Missouri.
Yep. Partially owned by Kenny Schrader. Thumbs up, Kenny.
Who ran in the race.
Who ran in the race and ran pretty well. Kenny's always racing. And it was good to see him out there with mixing it up again. But let's face it, the night belonged to Smoke. Stewart just flat out dominated.
Yeah, I think he's going to win his second SRX title because he is the man on dirt. And they've got one final dirt race to go in the season finale. The Blaneys are going to run in that.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of fun to see. And I thought it was hysterical after the second heat where Kanan went up to Stewart and said, "Following you, I figured it out. I know what you're doing.
Yep.
Watch out." Yeah, Kanan didn't figure jack shit out.
Yeah, Kanan couldn't pull that crossover move that Smoke pulled on him.
Yeah.
No way.
No. And
that was one of the sweetest moves I've seen in SRX. When Smoke pulled the crossover move on him.
Yeah, it was just beautiful. And then caution after caution there at the end.
Yeah, we got to talk about that because I think that was the big flaw in this race. But before we do that, I will say this. I think you're wrong, Dave. I don't think the star of the night was Tony Stewart. I think it was Haley Deegan because they finally listened to me.
And gave her the coverage she deserved.
2 features, not 1, but 2 features during the race on Hailie Deegan. My girl, Hailie Deegan. So I was extremely happy.
Because they talked about Hailie Deegan. You let me down there.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I was thinking about. I watched the 2 features, of course, on Hailie Deegan. I have them on my DVR. Replay them often. No, but did you watch the features that they ran on her during the race?
Yeah, where they're talking about the family.
Did you see the family?
Yeah.
Did you see her mom? Her mom looks like she would be the biggest pain in the ass diva on the face of God's green earth. She looks like she's the Real Housewives of Bristol or something like that.
Yeah, she looks very high maintenance.
Oh, God, yeah. There you go. High maintenance. Perfect for a NASCAR discussion.
Yeah.
That woman looked high maintenance. Everybody else.
It's just
the husband,
low
of course,
key, big
he's got a huge
motocross and everything.
And, of course, the kids are into it now. And the kids look great. And Hailie seems like she's well-grounded and doesn't have a huge ego. But the mom,
she's had to work for it.
The mom looks like, like I said, she's somebody off of a reality series.
Yeah. No, Hailie and her brother have had to work to get to where they're at. Their dad said, you want to do this? Earn it. Made them do what needed to be done.
Now, that leads me into where we were going to go with the cautions, because unfortunately, they tried, I think, too hard at the end to get Hailie's car fixed, because she was the one that brought up one of those cautions at the end.
Yeah,
and they waited and waited and waited.
They wasted 30 laps under caution trying to get her car cooled down and fired up to get going again.
Yep.
They wasted so much damn time.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically, and I'm not saying that they handed the victory to Tony, but by the time they got going again, they finally, Bestwick in the booth even said, folks, we have got to get this race going again. We have got to. We can't wait any longer.
Yeah,
they didn't single out Hailie Deegan, but that's who they were waiting on. They wanted to give her every opportunity to get that car back out there, but it was too long.
It waited too long. And then some of the cautions down the stretch for the spins where they got the cars going again, they didn't need to throw a caution. Now, they tried to set it up to maybe give somebody a shot at Stewart. But setting up on the outside where the track was still a little wetter, Tony got some monster restarts. And there was no way anybody was going to touch him on those.
Yep, and our man in the booth, Willie T. Ribbs, was pointing that out, said you get up on the upper part of the track where it's still wet, it hasn't dried out yet, you're going to get better grip. And that's exactly what Smoke was doing.
Yeah. I like Willie in the booth. He's a man of few words, but he knows what he's talking about.
I love it. And sometimes he doesn't sound like he's, the most eloquent man in the world, but he's like one of us. He's like a normal dude who you want to have a beer with.
Guy who
he will make some really sly, funny remarks.
He will, and he's spot on.
But yeah, he's not a motor mouth. He doesn't feel like a Tony Romo who's got to talk a mile a minute. Look how smart I am. Look how smart I am. Listen.
Every second of airtime.
You mean like we do on this podcast?
Yeah, we have to, though.
All right. That brings us around to race 21 in the NASCAR Cup Series this weekend, July the 24th.
Let's go up to the mountains of Pennsylvania.
Only one Pocono race this year. Kind of sad about that. I really like the weekend doubleheader they were pulling.
I like the tricky triangle.
The weekend doubleheader they were pulling during COVID years was great.
That was a lot of fun.
Now, of course, when you hear the sponsor for this race, it makes you wonder. The M&M's Fan Appreciation 400.
Huh.
And, of course, he is the favorite at some of the sports books. Kyle Busch, of course, is. I
I
thought about it, but I think
can't.
I've got a track later on that I think he's better at.
He needs to show me a little bit more that he's ready to do something. The performance hasn't been there. He has
Well,
not.
Toyota, for the most part, the performance hasn't been there.
Yeah.
That being said, I am still going with the master of Pocono, the be-all, end-all. That would be Mr. Denny Hamlin. Again, I mentioned I was going back-to-back with him. I'm not deviating from the plan.
Nope. I am joining you on the Hamlin train.
And then Sam, the elder statesman, Mrs. C, Jen, and the juggler, Nick, are all joining us. So we got 5 Denny Hamlins this week. The Big Blue W, Bill, is taking Kyle Busch. Doug, the governor, is taking Ryan Blaney.
Almost went with Blaney.
And Aaron, the Big Easy, is taking Alex Bowman. Yes.
There we go.
Yes. All 8 picks are in ahead of time. Miracle upon miracles. All 8 of our panelists got their picks in early.
Write this date down.
I'll take credit for a couple weeks ago sending out a nasty email telling people you can send your picks in early and not be fucking late.
And penalized.
All right, Dave, you've got some hockey news for us.
Little bit of hockey news coming out of Chicago. Mr. Blackhawk, Eddie Olczyk, Eddie O, his former player. They drafted him in the first round. Stellar. He's been in the booth as their analyst on TV for 16 years, working with Pat Foley. Pat is no longer there. He's retired. Eddie has decided to move on. He has left, and speculation now is he's heading out to call the games for the Seattle Kraken, where his brother is an assistant GM. So kind of interesting. I think Eddie might be as fed up as all the Hawk fans on the direction that the team is going. So we'll see what happens.
Couple little NFL tidbits, as we mentioned. It's going to start ramping up here soon, kids. We are going to start shifting baseball back and the NFL moving forward. But 2 stories of note before we wrap up segment 2. 1, our team, in an indirect way, I find this interesting. This makes the Bears look somewhat smart, which
by not re-signing
in 2022 is a miracle, but
yeah.
At 28 years of age, Eddie Goldman, former defensive tackle for the Bears, who just signed a few months back with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, just a couple months ago, like 3 months, I think it was 12 weeks ago, signed with the Falcons, decided to hang up the cleats.
Yep, so I don't know, maybe the Bears sent something, maybe they decided, again, 28, not necessarily that old for a defensive tackle.
No.
A good one usually
can make solid.
it into his early 30s.
Yeah, he wasn't stellar, but he was solid. You could count on him.
Now, maybe he went from one crappy team
to
signed with another crappy team.
Like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, I'm not going to win a Super Bowl, so
why bother?
And then, of course, news has come down again. It seems like it's our weekly Deshaun Watson update. The Texans settled 30 cases that were pending against them.
Yeah.
For the whole Deshaun Watson situation.
Providing him with a non-disclosure agreement form, providing him with the apartment where things took place. I'm surprised it was only 30 because in a 17-month span, he had hired 66 different women as massage therapists. I'm sorry, that's excessively pathetic.
Well, then, of course, you've heard, and you're going to love the recommendation that is leaked out in terms of the penalty for what Cleveland is expecting, quote unquote. Mike Florio, not a big fan of his, but he is one of those insiders with the NFL.
Unfortunately.
So he came out and he says the Browns are bracing for anywhere from a 2 to 8 game suspension for Deshaun Watson.
That's fucking it?
That's it.
That's bullshit. That is absolute crap. That's insane. When you now have Rams defensive lineman Bobby Brown getting a 6-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs. And all of the accounts against Watson, and that's all you're going to do. That is absolutely freaking pathetic. That is a joke.
Yep. That's what I heard this morning. They're saying that they're basically projecting Tyrod Taylor's going to have to start 9 games. Watson starts 8.
That's ridiculous. No, shame on the NFL.
Well, of course, they brought in a female who has a background of dealing with sexual assault.
Yeah.
And that's supposedly where these recommendations are coming from.
That's bullshit. She's being paid off or being coerced into this shit.
My thought about this, and I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. You and I have talked about this. You wanted him gone. You wanted him.
I wanted him to go nuclear.
Chains in an Iron Maiden. For
I wanted
5 years.
4 games for each of the counts.
Right. Now, I was saying a year. I thought he would get at least a year. So I am shocked if they only go 8. What I am thinking is that the owners behind the scenes, as much as they probably hate, was it Haslam is the owner of the Browns?
Yeah.
And hate the deal he gave Watson to basically skate on the first year in case of any suspension. But I think they're looking at the entire picture, the entire product, all 32 teams as one league, and they're saying we can't destroy the value of one of these teams.
Yes, you can. You need to make a point to make these fucking players accountable for their actions. Make them act like human damn beings.
I told you, I thought a year minimum would have been reasonable. And especially because of the contract.
They don't give a crap about anybody except their bottom freaking line.
And that's why I'm saying my thinking is they don't want to destroy the overall NFL image, the overall product.
They're destroying
it. The Browns.
They're destroying it by letting this shit continue to happen with no consequences.
And of course, we will talk more about this in the weeks to come, especially when the penalty gets handed down. Oh boy, that'll be fun.
All right, stay tuned. One more segment coming up, kids.
Are you having trouble falling asleep behind the wheel of your expensive SUV? Are you finding difficulty in avoiding golf clubs thrown at you by your angry wife as you pull out of the driveway? Sign up today for the Tiger Woods Driving School, sponsored by Sports Frenzy 2.0. We'll show you how to text ladies of the night while still driving effectively in the wee hours of the morning. We'll also teach you how to ditch a suspicious backpack when you end up driving into a ditch. Check out Sports Frenzy 2.0 on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, for updates on our latest classes, including how to curse and swear in front of uptight golf fans and their children and still be adored by millions. The Tiger Woods Driving School. It's great. All right, kids, welcome back. We're going to wrap things up here. Sports Frenzy 2.0, the second most boring sports week of the year, yet somehow Dave and I are giving you 3 full, glorious segments.
God, how the hell did that happen?
Taping here on the 20th of July, 2022. Of course, next week we'll give you a full breakdown of the ESPYs tonight. Not! The last thing Sports Frenzy would ever talk about is the egomaniacal bullshit parade that the ESPYs are. And if you watch them tonight, do me a favor. Don't listen to this podcast ever again. Don't. I can't believe anybody who would listen to Dave and I, our intelligence, our analysis of sports week in and week out, would actually go watch goddamn Netflix. Why would you subject yourself to the fucking ESPYs?
You're better off watching America's Got Talent. God help me for saying that.
All right, college football. We talked about the big, bold move from USC and UCLA to go to the Big Ten, leaving the Pac-12. But now, the genius governor, Gavin Newsom of California, somehow thinks he has got the power, maybe because UCLA is a state school, to block the Bruins from moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten.
Gavin Newsom's an egomaniacal Democratic moron who's grasping at straws.
I don't understand how this guy has any support. He was almost recalled. His state is by far the worst when it's come to dealing with COVID over the last 2+ years. His state's the worst
in dealing with anything. Their frickin' tax rate is through the roof. The housing market is a frickin' disaster.
They let homeless people and drug addicts
People with legitimate jobs can't afford to live there. They're living in their cars in the parking lots of the places they work.
You got kids walking home from school, especially in San Francisco, walking past, needles all over the streets.
It's pathetic what's going on out there.
Yeah.
All right. But other than that, he's trying to block it. Blah, blah, blah. You're a moron, Newsom. But the Pac-12 and the Big 12 were in talks about potentially merging together. And that has completely fallen apart.
So now I wonder if what we haven't been discussing the last couple of weeks is not going to come to pass, where now the Big 12 is going to try to poach.
They're going to poach Arizona, Arizona State,
Utah, and Colorado.
Yep.
The 4 teams they've had their eye on. And then again, does the Oregon rumors of Phil Knight wanting to put the Ducks in the SEC? Now, the SEC had their media week here this past couple of days. Commissioner says, no, we're not looking to expand anymore after Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah. But there's no reason for him to.
Very, very interesting side note on that. The SEC was the sane party in all of this about a year ago. The SEC was the one who went to all the other big conferences and said, what we need to do is expand the playoffs to 16 teams.
Yeah.
We're going to have 8 conference champions, including some of the smaller ones like Mountain West.
Yeah, include them into the playoff system.
And then have the other ones at large. We'll give the top 4 teams a bye.
Yep.
And then that's when the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 did their little agreement behind the scenes. And now, of course, the Big Ten screwed the ACC and the Pac-12.
They screwed them
and now
big time.
The SEC commissioner is basically saying, all right, I tried. I did the best I could.
We attempted it. Nick Saban came out of their media week saying, this is not good for college football.
No, he's taking the same tack that the SEC
he's
commissioner
did.
These
super conferences.
They don't want this.
No, they don't. The super conferences
Lane Kiffin came
are
out
going to destroy college football.
Yeah.
It's going to be the haves keep getting, and you're destroying the other smaller programs. College football is going to get blown up. Everybody sees it who's sane. And there's not enough sane people in college football.
No, absolutely not. A couple other little notes outside of the big topics. And of course, we will continue to cover conference realignments as more headlines come to pass. And I'm sure once we get into the actual season here next month, we'll hear more about this.
Yeah.
Especially when a lot of these coaches start to talk about it. Florida's Quarterback, not de facto. He's going to compete for the starting job. Anthony Richardson. I give him credit for this. I'm not usually a big fan of social consciousness, but in this case, I think the kid did the right thing. He's number 15. His initials are AR. He was marketing himself for a long time
as AR-15.
As AR-15. He has come out and said, I will no longer be called that. I am stopping any work in terms of branding myself as AR-15.
Because he had a rifle for an arm.
Well, there you go. But, we're getting to the point now in this society where you do not reference guns. When is the day going to come when they start penalizing announcers for saying something like you just said? He's got a rifle for an arm. He's got a cannon for an arm. Oh, you can't say that.
Yes, you can. I'm sick of all this.
You watch.
I am just tired of all this crap.
But I think this kid is doing the right thing.
He's doing the right thing.
Distance yourself from the issue. You haven't made your money yet. You haven't made a name for yourself.
You're in good shape. That's fine.
Don't bury yourself.
I don't have a problem with that, but do not remove the phrases. There are things that you should still be allowed to say.
Speaking of talking, one last little nugget from the SEC Media Days. The SEC Network, I love them. I love them so much. I love them so hard. Brian Kelly got up talking for LSU.
Did he have a Southern accent?
You know how they'll put little disclaimers or descriptions underneath somebody's name, like Brian Kelly, LSU head football coach?
Yeah.
The SEC Network, somebody put underneath his name, Brian Kelly, Southern accent expert. It got on the air. I thought, man.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
That dude needs to come work for Sports Frenzy.
That's brilliant. Absolutely love it.
Oh, and of course, you sports fans out there who still, again, we ripped on anybody who watches the ESPYs. God help, don't do it. Don't do it. But now ESPN, we've talked about how they overpaid for the NBA.
Yep.
And now ESPN Plus will be going up $3 a month starting in August. Standalone cost for ESPN Plus will go up from $7 to $10 a month.
Yeah, no thanks. Bye-bye. Kiss my ass. Screw you.
And then I've heard people saying, well, that won't affect the Disney bundle. Are you out of your mind?
You're insane.
Do you really think
Disney's
not going to jack up the prices of the bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus when ESPN Plus goes up $3 a month? You don't think the bundle's going to go up?
You're going to get ripped.
That bundle will be $20 a month before the end of the year. Easily.
Easy.
And again, ESPN is not what it used to be when we were growing up.
No, not even close.
I used to watch ESPN Sports Center on a loop. I would have it going and going and going. I loved watching the highlights over and over and over again.
You don't get that anymore.
No.
It's all commentary, social bullshit. You don't get the sports news and coverage and highlights like you used to get.
All right, moving on to golf. Of course, there's controversy in golf, but luckily not at the British Open. Not the Open Championship, the British Open!
The Camerons reign supreme on the final day.
Yes, and Cameron Smith, who I love because he's got the mullet. He's got the awful mustache. But he's been hanging around majors here for the last few years. He's been close, and he finally put together an unbelievable final round. His putter was on fire.
One of the greatest rounds ever shot.
And guess who he left in the dust?
Rory
McIlroy played a very pedestrian final round when he went into Sunday, tied for the lead, could not get the job done again. So Cameron Smith at 20 under wins his first major, and I loved when they were talking to him with the claret jug after the golf tournament was wrapped up and they were starting to have some fun. One of the reporters asked him, how many beers can you fit in the claret jug?
Let's find out.
No, and Cameron Smith goes, I think I can get 2 in there. And then the guy follows up with the question, well, how many claret jugs will you be drinking tonight? Probably about 20. Very cool.
That's
very
awesome.
happy for Cameron
Good
Smith.
for him. Rory once again cannot seal the deal. He hasn't won a major since 2014.
Yep. And he
when are we finally going to call him overrated?
I think we're there. I think a lot of people are finally starting to say that about him. And him is a little strut, which I can't stand. His little bouncy strut, and he starts bouncing down the fairway when he's playing well.
Yeah, guess what? You don't get to strut unless you win again, dipwad.
But
all right.
I will say this, though. To be fair, we could start thinking about saying the same thing about Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, he's there.
How long has it been since he won after his little run?
Yep.
And then another year or two from now, we'll be saying the same thing about Koepka. These guys just can't sustain it like Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer did.
Yeah,
they just can't.
The rare person who can continue.
Yep.
So now some LIV stuff coming down the line. Sergio Garcia is done with the European DP over the controversies. Like, nope, you're not going to respect our decisions and let us play when we want, where we want, then I'm strictly live.
Yep.
Then, huge news on the Ryder Cup front. The European captain, Heinrich Stenson, leaving to go to the LIV.
And they will not keep him as captain because of that.
Yep. So now your European Ryder Cup players, Stenson, Garcia, Ian Poulter, and Lee Westwood are all playing on the LIV Tour. Destroys the European Ryder Cup team.
Now we're going to have winter for this whole thing to sort out. You know, they'll get through the FedEx playoffs now that all the majors are done. We'll get through the FedEx playoffs. And then the winter, we're going to see what happens. And who's going to come out.
Is sanity going to reign supreme? Because
here was the other move, under the radar move for the LIV Tour that I think could end up leading to not the death blow, but something that's going to force the PGA to either accept LIV as a competitor. Maybe at some point they decide to play each other. You know, LIV plays PGA in some kind of a FedEx type playoff. The best golf commentator, probably next to Nick Faldo, David Feherty, is going to do the LIV Tour from now on.
Wow.
David Feherty.
Wow.
Yep.
Holy
David Feherty
cow.
is now going to be exclusively doing commentary for the LIV Tour. This leads me to believe that there has got to be a TV deal next year for the LIV Tour.
There would have to
If they're setting up, we saw the movement with the NFL commentators this past year. If they've got David Feherty now, who is a big gun when it comes to golf commentary,
they've got to have a TV deal in the works.
Somebody is going to pay them, yes, dirty money. Somebody at least is going to go into business with LIV in terms of putting that stuff on TV.
Yeah.
Or even a big streaming service. Right now it's like YouTube only.
Right.
But even if you put it on Peacock or, God help me, ESPN Plus. I mean, ESPN's not above making a deal with the devil.
No kidding.
But this to me says they are going to get a TV deal done.
And they are in it for the long haul. So now I was watching some golf show the other night. It was on in the background. We were out at dinner. And they were talking about Ricky Fowler. I didn't get to hear what they were saying. But they put up the little ticker. In the FedEx Cup Championships, he's sitting at 139 as his ranking. Why the hell didn't he make the jump when he had the opportunity?
I bet he still could. I would think he still could. But he's not negotiating from a position of power now like he could have.
He's not.
But Ricky Fowler's going to go down as one of the most disappointing golfers in history.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be with Koepka, with Spieth, supposed to be in with those guys in terms of the next young wave of golfers.
Yeah, who are supposed to dominate. And
of course, Ricky cared more about the image. He got his
sponsorship and the commercials.
I'm going to wear the orange all the time, and that's going to be my thing. And
yeah, he didn't focus on the golf.
Right. All right, time to move on to our moments of silence. I unfortunately draw the short straw this week, so the two I have are tragic beyond belief. First up, young Spencer Webb, Oregon tight end, dies at 22 years old. I believe it was some kind of a cliff diving accident.
Just a
awful,
stupid accident.
You and I have kids in their late teens, in their early 20s, and they think they're indestructible.
We thought we were indestructible.
Right.
I've done some stupid shit.
Right. You got people in their late teens and early 20s. They are going to try to do risky things. They are not going to think about the consequences, the dangers involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you got here.
Yep, unfortunately.
Then 37-year-old Bobby East, 3-time USAC national champ, brief dalliance in the NASCAR series, a little bit with the trucks, a little bit with Xfinity, stabbed to death by a drifter who the police had been looking for.
Who has a rap sheet, who shouldn't have been out on the street to begin with.
And you see the shots of this guy. Sorry. We do judge people. You can say what you want. You can be a snowflake. You do judge people, especially based on their appearance. I'm not talking skin color. I'm not talking about that. But when you see a guy who's got face tattoos, sorry, I'm not thinking he's a Nobel Prize candidate.
Yeah, no. And again, it goes back to frickin' California letting people out and not punishing the criminals. This guy never should have been out on the street at this time. And we have a tragic loss of life because of it.
37 years old, stabbed to death.
All right. Now we go to NFL. Charles Johnson at 50 years old. Wide receiver with the Steelers and the Patriots. He was with the Patriots when he won the Super Bowl. Played for University of Colorado Boulder. Thoughts and prayers to his family and
First
friends.
round pick
in the 94 draft.
All right, so as always, unfortunately, it's that time on Sports Frenzy when we have to do the pivot from tragedy to stupidity. Yes, it is time for the Red Forman Dumb Asses of the week.
And then we've got a few of them, kids.
Yep. I'm going to start off. Couple easy ones, and then we've got a lot of baseball ones. First off, Brittany Griner's lawyer over in Russia, who somehow thought it would be a good move to point out to the court that she was okayed, Brittany was, to use cannabis in the United States.
By her doctor.
Here's the problem. Who the fuck cares because you're in Russia?
And, oh, yeah, by the way, if you're in the United States, if you live in California and your doctor prescribes it, it's fine. But if you go to a different state where it's not legal, it's not fine. You're still going to get arrested.
And we're talking here about different fucking countries. It's your responsibility as an international traveler to know the laws of the country that you are going to. And Brittany Griner had been to Russia multiple times. And for her lawyer to pull this bullshit and act like this is some kind of significant movement in her trial is idiocy.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. All right. Texas A&M senior wide receiver Anais Smith. Idiot was speeding, got pulled over, now arrested for a DWI, unlawful weapon possession, and possession of marijuana. All in Texas. That's no bueno, kids.
Don't mess with Texas.
Not good.
All right. The Leah Thomas saga just seems to get dumber and dumber and dumber as the weeks
How
pass.
dumb is it?
Leah Thomas, of course, the transgender swimmer.
Who pissed off every female in the NCAA swimming community.
Oh, and it gets worse. Because now the NCAA, in their infinite insanity, have nominated Leah Thomas for the NCAA Woman of the Year award.
That's an absolute travesty. It's garbage. That has got to be one of the dumbest moves of the year.
And I think the female athletes are more fired up about that than they even were about it being able to compete in the championships.
Yeah. No, this is going way too damn far.
All right, one more here, and then Dave's got a couple baseball, and I've got a baseball. The Track and Field World Championships. 3,000 meter steeplechase. Kids, you got to look up. Google the pictures of this. The pictures, are unbelievable. They are so beautiful in their stupidity.
Yep.
There was a cameraman in lane 2 during the steeplechase run.
He was filming another event.
Back to the runners. And you see the runners in the picture all coming at him, looking at like, what the hell is going on? And this guy's oblivious.
Yeah. One, he shouldn't have been on the track to begin with. You never are on a track during an event. 2, why the hell didn't he have a spotter?
I don't know, but the pictures, again, are priceless.
And God, kudos to the participants in the race for not destroying him or taking each other out.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, that had to have impacted the outcome of the race.
Well, I think that's
a full
the big thing, yeah.
lane away from these guys.
I think that's a big part of this.
That's pathetic.
Yep.
Ugh. All right. First off, going back to Juan Soto and the Nationals being declined, dumbass Scott Boras, his agent, complaining, well, it's pathetic that Soto had to take a commercial flight to the All-Star game, that the Nationals didn't charter a flight for him after the game with Atlanta. Atlanta chartered a flight for their players, multiple players. Well, gee, maybe if Soto wouldn't have turned them down, they might have forked over the money. Why would they if he's not going to play for them? And 2, where's your sorry ass not putting up the money to charter a flight for him if you're so concerned about it? 5-hour arrival difference between Soto's commercial flight and the Braves charter. Boras is a dumbass for even bringing this up. One more thing there on him. Next up, really, Mr. Manfred, the brilliant Major League Baseball commissioner. There's been the controversy about the pay structure for the minor league players. and how they aren't making a living wage. And Manfred's like, took exception saying, no, they're making a living wage. There's no question. We're giving them residence. We're providing them a place to live and paying them peanuts. Now, there's a whole lot to dissect in this, but the ego on Manfred, not even considering the fact that they do not treat their minor leaguers well, is pathetic. And that's the dumbass part of this. Mr. I make $11 million a year, and most minor leaguers during the baseball season make less than $6,000 a year.
Yeah, I want to kind of do a combo on the two dumbasses. That's why I held off on Boras, because I think you made a great point with Boras in that in the end, if he's so concerned about the welfare of his client, Juan Soto, why doesn't he fork over the money and charter a flight for him? Now, you and I look at the minor league thing a little differently. I'm more cynical, of course, than you, but...
Well, that's why I qualified it that there's a myriad of issues involved with this.
I am not going to cry for anybody that gets paid anything for playing a game. Sorry, I'm not. I'm just not. But if we want to look at it, and again, I'm not going to argue with you. Rob Manfred is an idiot. You know, he makes Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber look like
Mensa?
Albert Einstein and Mensa. Yeah. But how about the major leaguers, guys like Juan Soto, who think they can turn down? How many minor leaguers
would want a third?
Heard that, and basically shit their pants?
Yeah. What kind of moron are you, Soto, to turn that down?
How about Mike Trout? How about Anthony Rendon, who doesn't play? Jacob deGrom, who doesn't play? How about Jason Hayward, who doesn't play? Chip in a couple million each to help pay for the minor leaguers.
Yeah, how about we stop overpaying the guys at the top for playing a frickin' game and get it down to the young up-and-coming guys to actually maybe survive?
I think that is a much more equitable solution. And I did see somebody actually side with me on this the other day, in that I get tired of everybody, when it comes to labor negotiations, siding with the players. I'm sorry, you don't have a business degree if you don't understand that the owners have many more considerations outside of players' salaries to deal with. They have to worry about paying the costs of the stadiums. They have to deal with licensing. They have to deal with advertising.
How about providing you with all of your stipends, your uniforms and equipment?
So I always side with the business owners. I will always side with the business owners.
And you're playing a damn game.
That could be the ultimate point. Now, finally...
And if you wouldn't demand so much damn money, more people would be able to afford tickets. Yeah. Ticket prices could come down, and families could go out and enjoy an afternoon at the ballpark again.
Perfect point, because it's always going to come back to hosing the fans and upping ticket
and
prices,
that's why,
concessions, and parking.
And that's why your fan base is disintegrating.
Finally, Dusty Baker, before the All-Star game, says he never watched Shane McClanahan, the AL starter from Tampa Bay, pitch. Dusty, you faced Tampa Bay in Game 6 of the 2020 ALCS, and McClanahan pitched almost 2 innings against you. You idiot. You dumbass.
Go get yourself a new toothpick.
That's it for Sports Frenzy. He is a conquistador, Dave Height.
He's a maestro, Kevin Crane. Check out the weekend edition. We'll talk to you next week.